There's no way I will allow that from some CBS Sports intern. There's no way. Somebody, at some point when you do a list, it has to go through executives, the executive office or something, or a senior producer. You can't have Brian.
I'm sure it did.
I don't know. Brian Flores is not 16. No, you're not paying attention.
I'm with you on Brian Flores, and I'm with you on the floor.
Ron Rivera is also up there somewhere.
Yeah, yes.
I like him. Jim Jackson, 15 minutes. All right, great game last night. We have criticized, we have to, Paul George for not stepping up when needed, but last night he proved that he is the one the Clippers should be relying on. Kawhi Leonard is not available again for the Clippers, and Paul George just pulled off one of the greatest halves in NBA playoff history. But Paul George isn't just about last night when Paul George had a stinker earlier in the series. There he was, first guy to talk to the media, available on the bad nights too. A lot of people in the NBA want to be paid like ones, demand to be ones, but they don't want to do all the one stuff. Paul George is a two, right? Maybe he's the one on this team. 83% field goals, 75% on threes, 100% on free throws in the second half against a very good Suns team. The truth is, Paul and Kawhi are very similar. In fact, I could make the argument Paul George is the closest thing to Kawhi in the league. Strong, wiry players, same size, great wing defenders, went to California non-power basketball schools. Both chose the Clippers over the Lakers. But one is viewed, Kawhi, as clutch and Paul as viewed as inconsistent. Does availability matter? That feels like a clutch asset to me. Kawhi is missing again. And here is Paul George, and listen to this stat, who has played 130 more minutes than the next closest NBA playoff player. One of the reasons Michael Jordan's flu game is so iconic, because Michael had 102 fever and was available. Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, I know it's injuries, but it's more than fair to say, I don't know if they'll be available. Sometimes Kawhi, Kyrie are not available emotionally. Anthony Davis sometimes not available physically. I think we have to kind of reboot how we think about clutch. Are you showing up to work? Well, it's injuries. Yes, I'm not disputing that, but being hurt a lot makes you less of a reliable teammate. I look at these playoffs and I'm like, let's go to Paul George, Mr. Inconsistent. The three biggest games for Paul George in these playoffs. Game 7 against Dallas. He played 44 minutes, 22 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. Game 6 closeout game against Utah, 46 minutes, 28, 7, and 9. Game 5 against the Suns, 41 minutes, 41 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. In those 3 games, he missed 1 total free throw. Paul has his bad moments, but they sure don't seem to be in the biggest spots. And what I like about Paul George is not just that he gives you 45 minutes every time there's a big game. He plays defense in every big game. He gives you physicality in every big game. He talks, win or lose, after every big game. There's just an availability quotient to him. He is there mentally ready to go. He's there physically ready to go. And I can't simultaneously criticize Anthony Davis, Kyrie, and then not give Paul George credit for what he is and they're not. Ready to play 45 minutes every big game. Here's a stat for you. So last night was the 18th Clipper playoff game, right? Paul George has 20-plus points in all of them. 4 guys have done that ever. KD, Kobe, MJ, and Paul George. Like, we gotta reboot a little bit what we think clutch is. And it's not just his points. Paul's always there, good or bad, 45 minutes, great defense, incredible effort, talk to the media afterwards, take the bullets when they're flying. And it's not a shot at Kawhi. I know he got hurt, but Popovich got tired of him. Toronto could never figure him out. Last year, the chemistry was terrible with him. He's nonverbal and communicative. That's part of being available. He's not available that way. Paul George is. Boogie Cousins summed up and defended Paul George after last night's Clipper win and Paul George performance.
I don't know where this trolling has come from, where the internet controls the narrative about these players. It's becoming foolish, man. Like I said earlier in the year, that's one of the most special players to ever lace his shoes up. Get this dude his flowers, man. I don't understand the slander. It's becoming quite silly now.
And from that, I want to segue into another story about availability. So during the summer when there were no sports, Joy and I talked a lot about Michael Jordan's 10-part documentary. Now, Michael Jordan, you could do another 10-part documentary. I'd watch that too. He's a fascinating guy, probably the best basketball player the world's ever had. LeBron, Magic certainly get arguments. But when Michael did that 10-part documentary, no question, it took Michael's view of the dynasty. But I was there throughout it, and it was a truthful documentary leaning, like all documentaries, on the person who controlled the documentary. Scottie Pippen thought he was minimized in the documentary and therefore now has written a book to avenge those feelings. Scottie's book is not accurate. It's a lot of BS. It's a lot of reaching for stuff that didn't really exist. Yesterday, he was on Dan Patrick's show. He was criticizing Phil Jackson because when Michael left, it was Scottie's team. Remember that? Michael went and played baseball, Scottie's team. And in that first year, they got to the playoffs. They were a very good team, by the way. They were still a very good team, won 55 regular season games. Year before, they won only 57 regular season games, but won the title. And at the end of the biggest game of the year, Phil Jackson did not draw the play up for Scottie Pippen.
If you knew that Scottie Pippen had been with the Bulls from 87, battled through the Pistons and every other team that we had to get to those 3 championships, wouldn't you give Scottie Pippen one opportunity to get a last-second shot without Michael Jordan? Like 1 year without Michael Jordan. Can I get one shot? Like, I'm doing all the dirty work.
That's BS. They actually drew up 2 plays for Scottie Pippen, and he missed on both. Therefore, they finally went to this shot. Sorry, radio audience. First of all, let's acknowledge this. Kyrie and Kevin Love did not get a lot of credit for the Cavs title. LeBron did. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played with Magic on the Showtime Lakers. They're known as Magic Showtime Lakers, and Kareem's the leading scorer in league history. So let's be honest. When you play with a Magic and a Michael and a LeBron, you get minimized. They're called Magic Showtime Lakers. Many people believe Kareem's the best player ever if you really go to stats and numbers and longevity and defense and offense and unstoppable. It's Magic Showtime Lakers. Kyrie hit the big shot for the Cavs. It's LeBron's title with the Cavs. That's the reality of it. So Scottie is never going to get the love that he probably deserves because Michael was the best player and the most glamorous and the coolest and had the biggest shoe deal. So that's just the reality of playing with the greatest Batman ever. You get minimized as a Robin. But I covered Scottie for a couple years in Portland. And here's the part that Scottie doesn't want to talk about. Scottie always wanted to be viewed as a 1, paid like a 1, get all the accessories of a 1, the respect of a 1. But if he played poorly, he wouldn't be around for the tough questions. That's part of being a 1. Availability. Paul George, availability. You want to be a 1, you got to be ready to play, ready to talk about failure, ready, regardless of how you feel the flu game, you got to be there. Scottie, and I've seen this a lot in pro sports, a lot of people want to be seen as a 1, talked about as a 1, paid as a 1, But they don't want to do all the one stuff. And the longer Pippen took control of the Bulls after Michael left, the more he unraveled. And here's another thing that's not talked about when I covered Scottie. The idea that Phil Jackson did not draw a play up for him. That's very interesting. Scottie was never a closer. He was just an incredible player and